now that we've all come back together, what I wanted each group to do is basically just share a little about what were some of the things that you came up with by way of programs that hit on the ideas and questions that were listed on your flip chart paper. And again, as I said, bonus points if you connected it to a fold, not required, but just a nice practice to have. So who wants to go first? Great, thank you.
Randy, my assistant. She's gonna read from the bandwagon. Okay, so we had identity, strengthen your Jewish identity, and we found 3 pieces to this board that we felt we really connected to. One of them was Jewish culture versus religion. The second one was what do I believe in, which also connected with the different aspects of Judaism, what makes me Jewish, who is God. And then our third piece, actually we had 4. The other piece we had was using our strengths to develop one's Jewish identity. Example, if you're passionate about the arts, making a connection to the arts through Judaism. And our last piece that we felt connected to was, what is my connection to Israel? And we, of course, were very good with bonus points and thought of folds for each, both AZ and BBG on each side. For programming that we came up with the Jewish culture versus religion, we used the Jewish culture versus religion, Jewish American versus American Jew. We figured it could be a discussion-based program. It could be a fishbowl activity where everyone writes a question in, there's a fishbowl pulls out, and also some sort of simulation where we do a what-if scenario and then we play it through. Another one was reflective questioning on a personal level, where you give these kids, you give them questions that really make them think and have to look back on what we're reading and connect their dots. It's a brotherhood, a sisterhood program, it's an educational program, it's got Judaic in there, it's community service. It can be anything and everything. For the next one we have the what do I believe in? And again, we came in with reflective questioning. We also thought of the idea of bringing an outside source, a speaker, a rabbi from a synagogue, a leader of some sort of group within the community. Different perspectives in an interactive setting. This was, I forgot what that one was. Is that self-explanatory more or less? I guess people's different perspectives of their Jewish beliefs in an interactive program, hands-on. Then we had adding one religious aspect to a service to start some sort of discussion. So like on your Friday night service, we talk about putting, I'm really awful with the terms, that barrier in between like the guys and girls, the mechitza, not telling the kids we were doing it, putting it in there, and then just being like, let's see how they react. And at the end of the service, bringing up as discussion. And then we did the traditional step over the line where we ask them questions and they have to step forward if they feel it, step back if they don't. And again, that is all 6 and 5-fold programming, depending on what you choose to apply it to. We have using strengths to develop one's Jewish identity, which we felt connected with the chugim aspect, so it could be fun. We had Israeli dancing, cooking, music, arts and crafts. It could be general interests. Definitely a 6-fold, 5-fold program. Again, outside of resources, having someone come in and speak to the kids. Community service projects. And then we went into J-Serve, which is a whole other beast on its own. But again, 5 and 6-fold programming. And then the last one we had was for Israel, what connects me? And of course, it's, again, under the scope of anything and everything, because Israel is just so vast and varied. Food, culture, and then it was culture versus religion. Food, of course, speak up. Jewish geography, Israeli trivia, we had idea simulation, technology and inventions, politics, service projects, which kind of goes into, I guess, J-Serve, and again, 5 and 6-fold programming, but it is endless and you can keep adding to it for each one of these. So nice.
Thank you guys. Fantastic. The thing that I also want to highlight is there's a really nice sort of flow. Some programs are about a certain fold, and then other programs are about another fold. And we're going to talk a little bit more about, sort of programming in general, and the way that we talk to the teens about integrating all of them. But what's really nice is for your teens to be thinking about, push them to say, this program was very discussion based, and so maybe you would say that that's educational. So what can you do in the next one so that it's not that, so that it is about sisterhood, something along those lines. You do still want, as you guys showed, you do still want to have the ability to find every fold, not in every single program necessarily, but throughout the course of a bunch of the programs. So, all right, can we do Connect next?
Would love to.
Great.
Come on, team.
So we had a lot of discussion about creating the Jewish community and what that would entail and what exact programs. So I was going to talk a little bit about, when I came here earlier, we were having a discussion with Tracy about the idea of temple hopping. And Tracy said that you had tried it and there were some things that you would change. So what we thought that might be a really good way in terms of, just connecting the teens to all different kinds of the denominations of Judaism. And one of the cautions that I came up with was that if a teen was raised Reform, they might be a little bit apprehensive about coming into an Orthodox synagogue. So, we had talked about like how could you just help them to kind of know the playing, make it easier for them so they wouldn't be afraid. And then Rebecca said, well, maybe have even like a teen come from that synagogue rather than a rabbi or something like that, so that they would feel a little bit more comfortable. So we had the idea of you couldn't just do that. You need to kind of like lay some groundwork before you did that. So.
And then my big thing was, how do we make teens look at the other aspects of community besides culture and prayer and people? So we came up with the idea of a round robin community member, bringing in different types of people from different communities and have them share not only what their community is like, but personal stories about their experience in their community and of their Judaic path. And then have the teens do some sort of program. We didn't go into much detail about picking and choosing different aspects from everything that they've heard that they really relate to, and kind of creating their own community within themselves and within others with the aspects that they connected to from all the people.
And one of the things that I think that can tie into both of these and a lot of the different Judaic programs that we try to put on is that we don't really know what our communities look like. Some of us, like Becca and I, we both come from fairly larger communities where Grace was saying that it may not be as large a community where Jewish community where she's coming from, and same for all of you. So we do as professionals and BBYO, we do our community mapping for our regional planning and everything else. So we put a little spin on it and just said Jewish community mapping for the teens, where they have to lay out where their temples and synagogues are, where their day schools, very similar to what we do, but it's showing them from like a Google Map perspective, Google Earth perspective, the entire world, their state, their city, community, things like that. So it shows the different concentric circles.
Just to add on to what Danny was saying really quick, not even just day schools and synagogues and temples, but Jewish nursing homes, Jewish daycare centers, other ways to connect to repair, things where they can have those resources also. That's everything.
Great, thank you so much. And then we will finish off with improve.
So, with Improve, it's all about changing the world and having teens be educated on different topics. So, a lot of the questions that were on here kind of came around. The big question is, how do we make the teens care and how do we make them feel related to the topics? So, our program idea that we came up with,
so we kind of wanted to have like a celebrity red carpet night and tell all the kids, we're going to be learning about a lot of celebrities and stuff like that. And we want to go through, the story, the attributes of like famous people, kind of the skills they use to help them, succeed in their careers, then also that they use to help them start charitable foundations. And kind of show them, that it's a cool thing to care. So that way they come being like, oh, I'm interested in pop culture, but then they leave being like, wow, the people I'm interested in are also interested in improving the world. So that way they share these traits. And we thought it'd be interesting also because the celebrities we would use, some of them could be Jewish, but not all of them would be Jewish. So to show them that, it's not just a Jewish thing, it's a thing. So yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. Great. things that came out and was really a solid point in that last one in particular is that a lot of times we think about these by way of our Jewish programs, Judaic programs, whatever that's going to look like. And one thing that I think the last group showed us a great example of is a teen's going to walk into that program and they're not necessarily, they're going to be like, oh, it's red carpet night, that's so cool, we're going to learn lots about celebrities. And the point of that is there are programs that are amazing and are high quality and don't necessarily scream, we're learning about Judaism. And yet, at the same time, they're walking away with an understanding of values or an understanding of themselves or an understanding of their community. And that is, it's a great segue to the end, so thank you guys. That's how we think about the educational framework. It's not necessarily just about, we're going to sit down and we're going to study or we're going to do a tech study or something like that. It can be. And there are really useful times where that works. And we should be thinking about it for all of our programs, which is actually a great segue. We're going to do a short piece now, and then I think we're going to break for a little while and come back to this after we've let it absorb and had something to eat and whatnot. But this is the segue into the idea of, I said before, we've got more meaningful Jewish experiences. So we've talked about more, wanting diversity in our programming. I think you guys saw, that was a great exercise in looking at how many different types of programs can you get. And the beautiful thing about having teens do that is, think about, there are only 3 of you, or 4 of you in one of those groups. Think about what that could look like if you had 7 teens sitting around from, think about your CLTC chapters, all different chapters, all around the country. What could that list look like? Okay, so talk about diversity in programming. So that's the more. Now we've talked about the Jewish, right? Things like identify, connect, improve. How do we get these teens thinking about what it means to be Jewish and be a proud Jew and embrace all of the things that come with it? Now we're going to come back to the meaningful. Because at the end of the day, what we've said is BBYO should be the most fantastic programming these teens have ever seen. And they should be doing it themselves. The key to this is, and I know sometimes people shy away from this a little, the key to this is that BBYO programs are put together, led by, thought of, run by the teens. And who is always there to help them along the way? And by help, I mean guide. The adults. And that's an important piece. Because at the end of the day, how many 14-year-olds do you guys know who wake up and say, here are my goals, and I'm going to think about all of these different aspects, and I'm thinking about logistics and financials. I mean, I don't know that many 14-year-olds who wake up thinking that, but it doesn't mean that they can't. It just means let's show them all of the aspects that we want, that are important and we recognize can lead to quality programming. They will take the ball and run, but they're not going to take the ball and run if no one shows it to them. And so one of the things I get, from staff and advisors all around North America all the time is, why should I be involved in conversations about programming? This is run by the teens. And that is where I say, stay in the conversation, engage with them, ask them questions, don't plan for them. Absolutely not. But when they're thinking about their ideas, if you're not in the room, then there's no guidance happening, right? If you're not in the conversation, there's no guidance happening. Stay involved and have them bring you a draft and ask them questions. And again, this is the sort of key to it that I've found with teens. It's not so much about saying, you should do this instead, but rather if they come to you with an idea and you see that there's maybe a little more that could happen to it, ask them a probing question. Because in their answer, they'll see that there's more possibility. And so the way that I say it, it's like I continue to poke at them over and over and over. I'm like that annoying little poke that just keeps happening, that I keep asking them the questions. And ultimately, what they see is, oh wait, there's definitely more to this that we wanted to achieve. And I'll get into that a little more as well. Often, when I talk to teens, I'll ask them a question and they'll give me sort of a first round answer. Fantastic. And then I'll keep poking and prodding and poking and prodding. It's like uncovering the layers of an onion. And by the end of the process, they haven't changed their program. All that they've done is articulate what they already wanted to do. Without me asking them, the ideas were in there, they just weren't saying it. Okay, so again, we're not putting anything new in there, we're just giving them the language to talk about it. Okay, it's sort of like the educational framework. These ideas and these questions are in there. We're just giving them the language for it to be present in a conversation. Okay, so Let's talk about this idea of a really meaningful program and how we get there. So if you would like, I'd say take a look at the Guide to Program Excellence, which again is one of those appendices in the document that you have on your computers that was sent to you. Some of you might already be familiar with it though. So there are 3 pieces. The steps for programming, I think there's like 7 pieces, everything from goals to evaluation. We're going to focus on 3 of them today, okay? So the first one we're going to talk about is goals. And just like the educational framework, I'm going to put out there that the word goals doesn't really resonate with most teenagers. Okay? It's not something that most people will walk up to you and say, I would like to do a program and here are my goals for it. It's not natural. So, again, what I say is remove the word. Think about it as questions that you want to ask the teens. And the important thing is have this happen before they even start programming. They know that they have a program. All of your mock chapters are going to be doing one evening program. So when they're getting ready to start thinking about it, before they start throwing out ideas and activities and programming that they've seen in the past, talk to them about their goals. And again, I don't use the word. What I say to most teams that I work with is, what are the things that you want to have your peers talking about, thinking about, doing, whatever the case may be at the end of the program? What are the things you are trying to accomplish? That's a phrase that they are fully familiar with, and they're going to say, well, at the end, I want them to say they had a great time, or I want them to be, really tired because they've been running around a lot, or whatever the case is. Asking them, what do you want to be happening or talked about at the end? That's how I start that conversation. Okay? This is the premise of beginning with the end in mind. Again, a really important piece for all of our teens. And if you can instill something in your teens for programming as they leave CLTC, it's this idea. Before you start planning a program, think about what you want to accomplish at the end of it. And then plan your program so that you know you're going to get there. Okay? It's like setting your roadmap. I had to get here today. I used my GPS. If I didn't have the address of the end result, God only knows where I would have ended up. But it's the same idea. Okay? So, I'll use an example that Danny was actually present for when I talk about goals and this idea of continuing to needle and pick away at the teens. I was working with Danny and the coordinators for Wisconsin's Spring Regional Convention, and we sat down at the very first coordinator meeting and we said, what are the things that you want to accomplish? Essentially saying to them, what are their goals? And they came up with a list, and it was a nice list, and it said things like, we want people to have had fun. We want people to feel like they're part of something bigger. We want them to say that they want to come back to another convention. Okay, 3 things that you want to accomplish, not bad. But I said to them, what does it mean that you want them to have fun? What does it mean that you want them to say they want to come back? Let's dive a little deeper and let's break those down, because fun is a fantastic goal, but it could mean 17 different things. So let's get specific. And so continue to ask them, what does this mean? Get specific. What are you trying to look for? Fun could mean I met new people. Fun could mean I reconnected with old friends. Fun could mean 7 other things. Well, there's a really big difference there. Meeting new people and reconnecting with old friends are 2 very different goals. If we leave it at, I had fun, how do we know what to program? If we get specific with, I met new people, or I reconnected with old friends, there are very specific activities that we could do that will lead to each of those. Which is why, again, the teens knew what they wanted, they just weren't thinking about those specifics. Even though they would have said, that's not what I don't want one, I do want the other. It's just about the language around it. Okay? So once you've gone through that goal setting, and again, continue to push them over and over until they get really specific. The brainstorming session is the next piece that I want to talk about. And with this, brainstorming can take on a lot of different looks to it. And I think the biggest piece that I want to highlight is the way that we set the tone for brainstorming. It's important to have a space in which you're doing it, and it's important to have a time frame. But at the end of the day, if 7 people are going to be throwing ideas up on the wall, it's important that everyone in the room feels comfortable, that all 7 of those people feel like, I can put out a suggestion and I'm not going to get shot down. Because I know for me, one of the biggest things that will keep me from sharing my ideas is the thought that someone is going to shoot it down right away, or someone is going to think I'm stupid for having said that, right? And that's just going to shut me up right away. So when you're doing these brainstorming sessions with your teens, make sure that they have sort of rules that are set in place. We only put things up on the board. We don't take anything off. Everyone can contribute. No idea right now is a bad idea. I would say unless it's inappropriate or illegal. And then we can feel pretty certain that it doesn't go up on the board. But as long as it's legal and appropriate, everything goes up on the board. Set a time limit. It's important that they know that we're not going to come back and start dissecting these ideas until a later time. And then once the brainstorming is done, you can come back and say, oh, what do you guys think about this? Is this feasible based on our logistics? Do we have the money for it? Do we have the time for it? Is the weather going to cooperate? Is this actually going to hit on our goals? All of those different ideas. But the thing to remember when you're setting the tone for that brainstorming is to say you need everyone to feel comfortable, because it's possible you all could throw ideas up on the board. A piece of what Danny said goes really well with a piece of what Danny said. Well, if one of them hadn't felt comfortable sharing their ideas, we never would have ended up with that activity, okay? So the last thing that I want to come back to is evaluation, which is the last step on programming. Evaluating your program is one of the hardest pieces that I have seen for teens to go through. And one of the reasons is because to a lot of teens, evaluation is almost like judgment. And that's absolutely not what we want. Evaluation is not about judgment. Evaluation is about learning from what we've done so that we can either A, repeat it because it worked really, really well, or B, say, you know what, it's not exactly what I wanted, here's how I want to change it. It's the idea of you learn from doing, well, but then you need to figure out, is what you did everything you wanted? And so again, just the same way that we think about the way that we talk to our teens, it's really important to go into these evaluation conversations saying, you know, not saying, here are the things that I think didn't go well. First of all, it's for them. Let them identify what are the things you were happy with. What are the things you felt challenged by? When you were standing up in front of the room, did you feel comfortable? Did it feel like everything ran smoothly? Ask them the questions and have them bring up the answers, okay? So, any questions about some of those key pieces that we want to really highlight in programming? No? So, one thing that I do want to just tie it all together with is the idea of, we spend all this time talking about the educational framework and how, you know, there are these outcomes and then sub-outcomes, and we spent this time talking about goals. Well, the important thing to realize, and I've said this before, any program, not just what we would typically call a Jewish program, can have pieces of the educational framework in it. And the way that that plays out is when you're talking to your teens about their goals, what's to say that something in their own language that's Jewish can't play into any program? So, you know, they're talking about, they know that they want to do an AZAA, BBGG tournament, okay? That's going to be a regional program on a Sunday. They know they've got to figure out the details of it, but that's what they want to do, and they're doing their goal setting for the day. The way that I look at it is, they're going to have a list of goals, and that list of goals is not complete if there's nothing that relates to the educational framework in it. Now again, not all of the pieces of the educational framework are going to fit in, but something in there can be one of the goals in your list of goals for an AZAA BBGG tournament. Okay? It's sort of like the idea of, in any given program, you have a few things that you want to hit on. You're not going to hit on everything. It's like the idea of 5-6 folds. In any given program, you're not necessarily going to hit on all of the folds. You're going to pick the ones that fit the best. The same thing with your goal setting. You could have 17 goals for every program. That's unnecessary. You're going to take the ones that fit the best. And one, maybe two of those is likely going to be from the educational framework, even if it's a basketball tournament. Okay? It could be something about fundraising. Take a look at the idea of improve and something that came up around changing the world. There you go. You're still having your teens come together to play basketball, and now there's something thoughtful and purposeful in why they're coming together as Jews. Okay, again, come back to that phrase, more meaningful Jewish experiences. Diversity in the programming, today's program is going to be about an AZAA tournament. Meaningful experiences, it's basketball, but they still have a list of things they want to accomplish. Jewish. Something that they want to accomplish is about connecting together as a group of Jews, or it's about improving the world, or who knows, it could be any number of things. Okay? So we're going to break there. It's a good time for a break?
Yeah, the only thing I was gonna add, I did some meeting with one time. Who is it? Okay, hold on a second. The one thing that I was gonna say, the one thing, when I talked to you yesterday about how the kids feel like they're beaten down all the time when we're trying to elevate them here. Excuse me. When they're coming up with their suggestions, this is if anything that goes on here, don't ever say no.